Hello everyone, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we are going to work on the Combat Simulator project. Now this project is going to help us to understand methods a bit better. We're going to create two different kinds of methods for this project. We're going to create one that has a void return type, meaning that it does not return any data back to its method it's called from. And then we're going to create a method that returns some data so that our program can do some stuff with that data. So I'm going to show you what I mean by all of that. Let's go ahead and create a new project. I'm going to call this Combat Sim, and I will create my REPL. Okay, let's let it open up. I'm going to get rid of my files section because I don't need it. Let's organize my braces here a bit, and let's get rid of this line. All right, so we have a brand new fresh program. First of all, I know I'm going to be bringing in some user input, so before I get started, I'm going to bring in the Java utility scanner. Okay, perfect. All right, so in this main method here, I'm actually just going to use this main method to call another method. I will call this method, don't let me forget to put in my Mr. Storm and Combat Sim. So I'm going to create a new method. This is going to be a void method. Let's call it static void, and we'll call it intro. Okay, now notice that I've created this method outside of the main method, but it's still within the class, right? So I'm still within the class. All methods have to be created within a class. And for our projects, it'll be inside the main class because we're not going to mess around with other types of classes. Okay, so now I need to call the intro method, because if I don't call it, then it won't ever run, right? This main method is the only method that's going to run. And if I want other methods to run, I need to call them. So to call a method that has no arguments and returns no types, it's easy. All you have to do is call the method by its name, and then it will run. So let me go ahead and variables. We'll have a section for variables here. And then let's see. Okay. So inside this method, actually, there's a better comment for that probably. Let's say, I don't know. Let's just leave the comment out of it for now. I just want to put out, I'm just going to put out something onto the screen so that we can test to see if our method call is working. So I'll say, welcome to my Combat Sim. All right, so now if I run this program, the way this program is going to work is it's going to run the main method first. Now the only line of code inside the main method is this call to the intro method. So it'll look for a method called intro, and when it finds it, it will run whatever's inside that intro method. So if I run it, I should see the words welcome to my Combat Sim on the screen. So let's run it and see what happens. And that's exactly what we expected, right? So we know that our program is working properly. So let's go ahead and start fleshing this out. So I want to bring in some variables. I'm going to bring in I'm going to create a string name variable, which is going to be to allow our users to name their hero. And we're going to bring in some integers. Health, and I will set that equal to, 100. We'll say defense, and I will set that equal to, let's say 20. And then, I spelled defense correctly. And then we'll say monster hit, and we'll set that to, 50, right? So the monster is going to hit us for 50. Okay, perfect. So now what we can do, we have some variables. Now we can pass those variables into another method that's going to calculate our damage. But first we need to kind of add some more to this program so that our person knows what they're expected to do. So first let's ask them what their name is. So we'll do system.out.print. What is your name, hero? And then we'll give them the opportunity to enter their name. But we haven't started our scanner yet, so let's do that. Scanner reader equals new scanner system.in. Okay, so now we have a scanner. We're calling it reader. So let's say name equals reader dot reader dot next. Now I can also ask for, I don't know, how much health do you have, how much defense do you have, how much does the monster hit you for, or whatever. I can bring in all of these variables, and you absolutely are encouraged to do that on yours to make it more customizable. For me, I'm just going to kind of leave that alone. So that way you are not watching this video for way too long. You guys already already know how to do that stuff. So make yours fun. Mine is just going to be pretty basic. Okay, so we're bringing in the name. We'll say system.out.print line, and we'll say, oh no, a monster appears. Let's hit it. Okay, so now we're actually going to do the combat. And the way I want to do this is I want to write a method that calculates all of the variables that we're going to pass in and then returns a value. So this is going to be a static variable, but it's going to return an integer. So notice up here we use void. That's because we're not returning anything. Here, we're actually going to use int because we're returning an integer variable. Okay. So we're going to do some calculations and return an integer, and I'll call this combat. And I want to bring in an integer. We'll say H for health. We want to bring in another integer. We'll say D for defense. And I'm going to bring in another integer called MH for monster health. So we're going to bring in 3 variables, and then we're going to do some math with it. All right. And actually I can do all this math in one line. It's pretty easy. So I'm just going to return the value of that math operation. So we'll say health plus defense, because the defense is going to add to our health and defend us against the hit, minus monster hit, MH. So this method is actually going to return the value of this math operation. Now, you might be thinking, hey, why can't we just type that in our program up there? Why did we create an extra method to do this? Well, the reason is because methods will allow us to not have to rewrite lines of code over and over and over again. Now, for this example, it's not a big method, right? We only have one statement inside of the method. But imagine that this was a much more complicated combat system that took in things like hit chance, dexterity, your defense was only good against certain types of damage, and blah, 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 right? And so it was this big calculation that had to check a bunch of different things, and then it would return a value based on all these complex factors. Every time we had combat in our game, if we're making like a text adventure game, we would have to then rewrite all of that every single time. Instead, we can write a method and then just call that method and pass in whatever variables that method needs to do its calculation. Okay, so we have our combat method. Let's go ahead and call it. And what I'm going to do, I'm hitting caps lock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually store the return of that method in the health. So I'm going to say health is going to equal combat, and then we'll pass in health, we'll pass in defense, and we'll pass in monster hit. So what that's going to do is it's going to take the value of these variables, right? Health, defense, and monster hit, and it's going to pass them into this combat method. So they're going to come in, health is going to come in as this variable H, defense is going to come in as this variable D, and monster hit is going to come in as MH. And then this calculation is going to say, all right, health plus defense minus monster hit. And it's going to return that back and then store it in our health variable. So our health starts at 100, but then we'll say 100 plus 20 minus 50. So that's going to return the number 70 back to my health. Right? So now health is 70 instead of 100 because we just got into some combat. All right, let's actually put that out on the screen so the user knows what happened. So system out.println, and we'll say name, because we want to use the user's name. We've asked them for it. We might as well use it. Hits the monster, and it hits back. Now, there's some other things we can do here. We can create another method for calculating the damage we do to the monster and return that. We can, I mean, there's all kinds of things we can do. But we're going to keep this pretty simple for now. Just remember that these are tricks you can use to create some really cool stuff. So we'll say the hero has blank health left. Let's go ahead and run that and see if our math works out, see if this whole thing works properly. Oh, let me go ahead and close the scanner before I forget, because I do not want to forget that. Okay, perfect. Let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so it says, welcome to my combat sim. What is your name, hero? My name is Bart. Oh no, a monster appears. Let's hit it. Bart hits the monster and it hits back. Bart has 70 health left. That's exactly what we expected, right? Because we started with 100. We've added 20 to that 100 because that's our defense rating. And then we've minused 50 from that to give us 70, right? And that's the calculation we're doing here. Hit plus defense minus monster health. And the beautiful thing about this is we can actually keep doing this, right? We can just call this method as many times as we want. Oh, hello. And then let's say system.out.println, and we'll say, I don't know, name. Oh yeah, let's name tries to run away, but the monster chases them. Name was hit again and only has health left. So we're basically going to have our user get hit again, just so that we can see we can call this method multiple times. Let's try that again. This time my hero's name is going to be Nancy. Oh no, a monster appears. Let's hit it. Nancy hits the monster and it hits back. Nancy has 70 health left. Nancy tries to run away, but the monster chases them. Nancy was hit again and only has 40 left. Right? So this is a very effective combat system. It's really simple, but it's effective. It actually works. It does the math like it's supposed to, and all we have to do is call this method anytime we want it to run. Right? Now again, we could actually grab custom variables for these. We can say, what is your name, hero? And then we enter the name. We can say, how much health do you have? And then they can enter their own number. How much defense do you have? How hard does the monster hit, or something to that effect? Or we can leave monster hit alone. Or if you want to stretch this just a bit further and see what else you can do, you might be able to figure out a way to make it random so that the monster hits you for a random amount between a specific range. That's something we might learn later on in this class, but I'm pretty sure if you do a little bit of Googling, you might be able to figure out how to make that happen. Anyway, there's no limit to how creative and how complex we can get with these systems. One trick, though, one thing that you need to remember is that if we're calling this method here and we're replacing the value of variables here, that variable is only locked into this method until we pass it into another method. So let's say we had another method and we passed in this health variable and then returned it back, right? That would work. But if we tried to, let's say, declare all of our variables up here and then change them here, it wouldn't change them up here. It only changes them in the method that you're using them in, right? Variables are very local. We can make them kind of pretend to be more global by passing them into another thing and then returning it back. But we got to make sure we remember the scope of these variables. So it's going to be tempting to create a method for every little thing you do. But if you want those variables to carry over from one method to another, you have to pass them in. And when those values get returned, it doesn't recursively go back and return that value to all the places you've created the method. All right, so that may be a little bit more complicated than what we're looking at here. That's something that you're going to learn about more in the second class, the Computer Programming 2, where we get into object-oriented programming. For this, just know that we can create new methods that do custom things, and we can call them whenever we need them within a program. And we can pass in variables so they can do some stuff with them and return values back to the main or to the method it was called from. Okay, cool. I think that's about it. Just remember, for this project, you need to create a custom method that has a void return type, like we did here for our intro method. Don't forget to call that method as well. And we need to return or create a method that has a return type, like we did here for our combat method. That method will return an integer, and make sure you don't forget to call that method, once or twice or 3 times, however many times you need. All right. That's about it for this. Please let me know if you have any questions or need any help, and I will see you next time. All right. Bye.